right, former Black Op mastermind, spy master, Dr. Steve-Pieczenik wrote the book for the State Department on psychological warfare. You know, I was reading Goebbels more than a decade ago, Doctor, and he was talking when Germany was being bombed. It was 1944. They were really losing. And Goebbels said, we got to change our propaganda. The Germans will do whatever we tell them, but this stuff is too ridiculous. It was almost like Baghdad Bob out there saying the Americans are nowhere near Baghdad, and you see explosions a mile behind him and U.S. helicopters flying behind him. The Germans were saying, there's no problem, we're not being bombed. And Goebbels said, look, we've got to get more reality-based. And I think the ham-fisted psyops that these criminals are running are becoming so cartoonish that they may be fooling some of the dumber segments, but most people I know in the polls I've seen, people are not buying it. Dumping the body in the sea, all of this. And I want you to comment on their ham-fisted tactics, Doctor. But before you do that, let's get into MSNBC trying to demonize you, but then going to experts who they read in Salon and others in 2001, 2002, and other publications. MSNBC called Dr. Richard Devereaux and others, and he said, I'm not going to talk about it. He said, I don't want to continue to get calls about this. But he said, yes, he is a marfanoid. He has the disorder. He had it. He had it back then. There's no doubt. And they say, so that confirms what Pieczenik has to say, but still they make fun of you and myself. I mean, explaining for people, this is 10 years ago. He's on record at a hospital almost dead. Now, you saw him before that when you were working with him in the 80s. I met him once, and you said he looked ill then. Doctor, you're a medical doctor, have 2 medical degrees. Right. I mean, I was looking you up. You write some of the most prestigious medical reports in the country, co-author them that have won national awards just recently. Here you are saying he's got this. The media goes out to demonize you and then talks to the top expert on this disease. They admit that. Top doctor confirms Bin Laden had marfan-syndrome. They admit you can't live very long with this. Plus, he had total kidney failure. You can't live more than 6 years with that on average. But we're to believe he's in a squalid cesspit with no dialysis equipment. Can you walk through this fairy tale, Doctor?
Yeah. What happens is you invoked Goering. Let me invoke a man in 1945, a German senior official next to Goering, who was asked the following question by 3 American judges. He was asked, how did you mobilize 35 million people to go to war? His response was, it's very simple. Whether you're a democracy, whether you're communism, or whether you're Nazi nationalism, it's very simple. What you do is you create an attack, a false flag attack. Then you say whoever attacked us is the enemy, and whoever's with us against the enemy is a patriot. Well, that's what happened in 9/11, and the man who was asked that question was Goering, the head of the Air Force. He subsequently committed suicide, and that was in front of the commission and our prosecutors in the Nuremberg trial. So the technique is an old technique of trying to demonize and create we're the patriots in the United States, and anybody against them are enemies. Now, when you try to portray anybody, forget me, or what I am or what I was, it gets very hard when the beginning of the lie is a lie that's so obvious you can't really change it. And then once you create this lie where he had marfan syndrome, it's been corroborated by many people, let's forget me, but others, Madeleine Albright and others, you continue with a storyline over 9 to 10 years over different bureaucracies. You have to remember there's no continuity in the CIA. Since that time, 9, 10 years ago, I would suspect a good majority of the CIA operatives went out and went into other private businesses, which they normally should do, and many of them came back, and we have probably 70-80% of those who came back are on contract to major 128 or Beltway bandits like Northrop Grumman, Boeing, L3 Communication Corporations, where their loyalty is not to the United States of America. Their loyalty is to the paycheck, and they will be thrown out eventually. And with Petraeus coming in, hopefully, General Petraeus, he will get rid of a lot of these issues and the compartmentalized nature. Now, what happens with somebody like me who's been in the administration, in and out, by the way, I received no pension. I didn't receive, I received very little money. I came in as a consultant. I was not a civil servant. I sometimes had a military rank. I volunteered for most assignments, and I left. I was on line probably 6 or 7, 8 times where my life was...
Doctor, this is a short segment, long 18-minute segment coming up. Stay there. We're going to come back and break this down. But specifically, how long could you live with this disease? Why wasn't there dialysis equipment? And then we'll leave the Bin Laden situation and get into other big issues. But and they put out new fake videos that were old videos. Now, going back to Dr. Steve-Pieczenik, his website is steve-pieczenik.com. Pieczenik spelled P-I-E-C-Z-E-N-I-K. Going back to Dr. Pieczenik, I was talking to Dr. Pieczenik, and I said, look, I know you don't like to toot your horn, and about how you said he had Marfan's, the kidney failure. It's on record. Now they're having to admit it. It's impossible he could still be alive 10 years later. And he said, look, Alex, I don't want to get caught up in their fake narrative. When it's an overall lie, a lot of times, and I agree with them, they put out ridiculous disinfo as a tactic to then make you debate the little lies as if the overall story's true. I get that. But still, sir, as a psychological warfare chief, somebody that analyzed foreign governments' psychological warfare, somebody who launched these things on other governments, somebody who wrote, the book for this on the State Department, the guy that is the top advisor to Tom Clancy, you're the inside guy to make his book so credible. Let's go over no dialysis machine in the hovel that was a palace, not shooting in a 40-minute firefight, not having the wife, not producing the wife, throwing the body into the ocean, the Marfans. You said it last Tuesday, 2 days before they came out, and said that's a fake Situation Room photo, that's staged, that isn't how it works, it's not real. I've been in on those things. And then they come out 2 days later and go, yeah, it was fake. They weren't watching any video feed. They posed for the photo. I mean, you've been 100% right. You're being demonized by thousands of publications, proving that you're on target. You're over the target, getting the flack. So break down the ridiculousness of it, and then we'll get into all the other facets.
Let me go on the ridiculous. First of all, the mansion that they attacked, by the way, is a mansion. So before, all of the propaganda had to do with the fact that this tall 6'4" individual was carrying around a dialysis machine. Now, everybody in your audience knows this weighs a lot, and you can't carry it through Afghanistan and Tora Bora. That was the former story narrative up to the time of this assault. That's somewhere, and you can check it out. He was hidden. Osama was hidden along with Swahili, who's a physician, his number 2 man, in the mountains of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the president said we couldn't find him. Now, in 10 years, a 6'4" giant with marfan-syndrome walking around with a huge renal dialysis machine, which requires all kinds of ancillary assistance, is running around the mountains of Pakistan, which I've been in, and Afghanistan, and is carrying this and lives in a cave, but presumably was subsequently attacked in this beautiful mansion where he was living at 6 years without anybody knowing. I mean, that's an inherent contradiction. Now, not only is this mansion next to a major city, but more importantly, I want everybody to imagine what the West Point Academy looks like. It's a beautiful academy. I've taught there from time to time. I've given lectures. It's a beautifully located on the Hudson. Well, that's the equivalent of the Pakistan Military Institute. So I want everybody to imagine that a couple of 100 feet from West Point Academy, we found Osama Bin Laden dead in this beautiful mansion where we'd have all kinds of soldiers monitoring the entire area. We have aerial satellites. We have all kinds of aerial satellites. And believe me, our boys are extremely good, particularly in the Army. They're extremely good. I don't want to tell which divisions. I've worked with them. They're smart. They're right on target. Now, if you can't tell me that they couldn't understand that there was Osama bin Laden a couple of 100 feet away from the comparable part of our West Point, that's absurd. Then we get to the fact that they buried Osama bin Laden in the sea, which is not according to Muslim culture. All of my colleagues and friends who are Muslim understand that first you bury them on the land, and his face must point to Mecca. It must point to Mecca. You do not throw him in the water. So whoever developed the narrative didn't know once logistical and tactical issues, really did not understand what our capabilities are in the sky, on the ground, and really belittled in many ways. What I found offensive isn't that we're demonized or I'm demonized. I don't give a hoot whether I'm demonized. I give a hoot that our intelligence community is being demonized by inference because whoever created this story, and I can guarantee you it's not people I work with who are in Army units and elsewhere, and I won't identify them. They're exceedingly bright. They have many master's degrees. They have a great sense of humor, and I know they're laughing at what's happening right now. And these are brave men and women who are sacrificing their lives. And this is offensive to my colleagues who are working right now and dying for us, getting a story where, by the way, the SEALs, which I have had respect for, but they've had a history of some problems, have come from a land-based area and fly into this so-called mortuary, well, it's really a mortuary, and attack Osama Bin Laden and shoot him in the face. Now, the story gets so out of proportion that not only does it become ridiculous, but listen to this one, Alex. Within days of the time that you and I talked, I think it was 2-3 days ago, there were 2 books about the SEALs in the New York Times. Now, tell me that isn't propitious timing. And I told my colleagues in the intelligence community, you better inform those who are creating this narrative. This is out of control. You can't suddenly, and it was one of the great intellectual, literary editors of the New York Times, I forget her name, it's a Japanese last name, but Bill Keller of the New York Times, he's the managing director, should be absolutely ashamed, but ashamed that he's being manipulated and used to produce 2 incredible so-called autobiographies of SEALs, and just about the time that the SEALs were propagating and self-aggrandizing themselves on TV.
Let me stop you there.
2 more books come. Now, in the world of intelligence, this is so egregiously inappropriate that all my colleagues at the Association of Former Intelligence Officers, which I belong to, the National Military Intelligence Agency, which I belong to, and other intelligence groups, we're looking at this, and my colleagues are saying, this is bizarre, and this is an affront to the intelligence community because it makes them sound as if they're stupid. They're not. What's stupid here are the civilians who are running this show, particularly Mr. Donlin, who was a lobbyist, and the so-called national security advisor has no idea what he's talking about. He's a national security advisor to Obama. But guess what he was, Alex? He was a lobbyist for Fannie Mae between 1999 and 2005. Now, you know Fannie Mae was corrupt, and you're telling me that our national security advisor, who's basically a lawyer, went to second-grade schools, not quality schools, and maybe you don't agree with him, but certainly was not very capable, and his sister-in-law and his brother is the advisor to Biden, and he is married to Chief of Staff of Biden. Now, what we have here is a little Kabbalah of incompetency on the civilian side in the White House, which is mandating an amazing intelligence capability that we have, and they're telling them what to do. It's not unlike Bush Jr., who wasn't very bright and said that we had weapons of mass destruction, and many of our people in the intelligence community said, you don't know what you're talking about. And particularly in the military intelligence said, forget it. We're not even following.
And let me stop you, Doctor. Let me stop you.
I like General Petraeus is that he didn't listen to Jerry Bremer, this neocon, and a lot of the men I worked with in the units of special forces and other units said, get out of here, neocons. And now I'm saying to our intelligence community in the military, tell Donlin to leave. And tell the president he better get a new national security team because this is out of control.
All right, Dr. Pieczenik.
People's out of control. Yes, sir.
Dr. Pieczenik, I want to break down all the incredible information you're bringing out, but the point you were making a few minutes ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you're getting fired at in propaganda or with actual lead, that is a way to see where the enemy is. And if they open up on you immediately, that's evidence that it's staged. And so you have the rollout of the new alert system, the rollout of the new campaign, the rollout of the demonization of Pakistan, the rollout of all this pre-Bin Laden hype that if you kill him, he's going to nuke you in the AP 2 weeks before out of Guantanamo Bay. You can see all the pre-scripting ahead of time, showing even more evidence, and now you have the Navy SEAL books, all perfectly timed, a full PR drive, obviously set up at least a year ago. But I want to go over some other points that we haven't brought up to you.